Okay, when you think of world-class wine, where does your mind go? I bet for a lot of you, it's this tiny 30-mile-long valley just north of San Francisco, Napa. But how it got there? Oh, that's a story full of ambition, total disaster, and one crazy showdown that changed everything. All right, let's get into it.
So first off, let's just get this out of the way because it's kind of mind-blowing. Napa Valley, right? For all its fame, all its glory, it only produces 4% of California's wine. That's it, just 4%. Which, immediately makes you wonder, how on earth did this tiny region, making just a fraction of the state's wine, become this global icon? How did it convince everyone that it wasn't just good, but one of the best? Well, that's the mystery we are uncorking today. To really get it, we've got to go way back to the very beginning, to a time when the native Wapo people called this place the Land of Plenty, long before anyone had even heard of Napa Cabernet.
Okay, so the first European vines, they go in the ground way back in 1839, planted by a guy named George Yout. But the real spark, the thing that really got things going, was in 1861. That's when Charles Krug opened up the very first commercial winery. And then, boom, the gold rush hits, everyone's thirsty, and the industry just explodes. By 1889, you've got over 140 wineries packed into this valley. It was a gold rush, but for wine.
And I mean, things were rustic at the start. Just look at this. We're talking about pioneers like John Patchett, who didn't even have a proper wine press. He and his winemaker, a young Charles Krug, by the way, they had to make do with an old cider press to get the whole thing started. Can you imagine?
But just when it seemed like Napa was really hitting its stride, its future was about to get, well, completely wrecked. And not just by one thing. We're talking a whole series of devastating blows, one right after the other. So first, you have a huge grape surplus, and prices just plummet. Then comes the real knockout punch, a tiny little bug called phylloxera. This thing destroyed over 80% of the vineyards. And just when they were trying to pick up the pieces from that, the final nail in the coffin arrives in 1920, Prohibition. Commercial winemaking? Outlawed. For 14 long years.
I mean, you can just feel the relief in this photo from 1933, right? Prohibition is finally over, but the damage was done. The industry was an absolute mess. Only a few wineries managed to survive, and that was mostly by making sacramental wine for churches. Napa basically had to start over from square one.
And the recovery, man, it was slow. It was painful. By this point, most Americans just wanted sweet, cheap wines. In Napa, it was pretty much forgotten. But then two incredible people showed up who just refused to let that Napa dream die.
First, you've got Andrei Chelistchev. He was this Russian émigré they called the maestro. He was the science guy, the guru in the cellar. He brought in all these cutting-edge French techniques like temperature-controlled fermentation and was just obsessed with quality and cleanliness. Then you have Robert Mondavi. He was the showman, the visionary, the marketer. After this legendary fistfight with his own brother about the family business, he just stormed off to build his own winery. And he had one single mission: prove to the entire world that Napa could make wines just as good as the best on the planet.
So you had Chelishchev's science and Mondavi's marketing, and together they lit a fire under a whole new generation of winemakers. These folks started replanting vineyards, using actual climate studies from UC Davis. They poured everything they had into making absolutely world-class Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon. The quality was definitely going up, but the rest of the world still wasn't really paying attention. Well, that was all about to change.
You know, all this hard work, all this passion, it was all building toward one single moment. A moment that would put Napa Valley on the map for good. And what was it? A blind tasting. It was supposed to just be a little publicity stunt, but it turned into the wine world's version of David versus Goliath. Okay, picture this. The year is 1976. We're in Paris, basically the center of the wine universe. And this English wine merchant, a guy named Stephen Spurrier, he decides to put on a blind tasting. His idea was to celebrate the American bicentennial and, maybe get a little publicity for his wine school. The setup was pretty simple. He was going to pit the absolute best white Burgundies and red Bordeauxs, the undisputed kings of wine, against a few unknown Chardonnays and Cabernets from Napa Valley. Nobody took it seriously. It was supposed to be a fun little tasting, an easy win for France. No big deal. And get this, look at the judges. These weren't just any French wine experts. This was the absolute crème de la crème, the top of the top. There wasn't a single person on that panel who wasn't French. They were basically there to rubber stamp what the entire world already believed, that French wine was and always would be #1.
But then, they started tallying the scores. And something nobody saw coming happened. A total shockwave just ripped through the room. There was only one journalist who even bothered to show up, a guy named George Tabor from Time magazine, and he later called the result a bombshell. The unthinkable had happened. Napa Valley won, and not just in one category, in both. The #1 white wine, a 1973 Chardonnay from Chateau Montelena. The #1 red, a 1973 Cabernet Sauvignon from Stag's Leap Wine Cellars. The underdogs, the upstarts, they had beaten the giants on their own home turf. So this event, the Judgment of Paris, it was absolutely seismic. It wasn't just about validating Napa. It completely shattered the myth that only France could make great wine. And it kicked the door wide open for new wine regions all over the globe.
After that one day in Paris, absolutely everything changed. Napa Valley went from being this little curiosity to a world-famous destination overnight. I mean, the phones at those winning wineries were ringing off the hook, and the price of land in Napa, it just started to skyrocket.
And the growth that followed was just explosive. Think about it. Before 1976, you had a few dozen wineries in the whole valley. Today, there are over 550. That one tasting unleashed this massive wave of investment and talent that truly cemented Napa's place as America's top wine region.
So from these humble beginnings to near total extinction, and then this shocking, unbelievable victory, Napa's story is really all about resilience. But today, it's facing a whole new set of giants: climate change, devastating wildfires, water shortages. So the question now is, having already conquered the world of wine once, how is the small valley going to innovate and adapt to write its next chapter?